a lot of layer ones that focus on banking, they tend to get pigeonholed into this idea that, okay, the layer one is a banking layer, so therefore um, it's all about banking. Everything should be banking related. But if you think about it, banking is just a need to have for pretty much any type of business. And so we're here to enable other types of businesses not to try and get more things that are like MELD. And so you see that we have lots of dev tools for people to be able to build on. Some of them are auditors that now have either audited on the MELD blockchain, or they are familiar with how the MELD blockchain works, and they can do that. And also sort of technology providers like ThirdWeb. They support the MELD blockchain, both mainnet and testnet, making it very easy for game developers and app developers to integrate wallets and build core sort of functionality.
What's up, Beta Nation? Welcome to Dapp Central, your home for everything blockchain and crypto. I'm your host here, Fareed. As a part of today's video, we're sitting down for part 2 of an update with Ken Oling, representing the MELD protocol. Without any further ado, let me go ahead and bring up our guest. Ken, welcome back. How are you?
Good. How you doing, Fareed? Thanks for having me again.
I'm good. It's a pleasure. I think we've got quite a few topics that have popped up here since our last conversation, which was literally only a week ago, right? So a lot of content, a lot of things coming out here from the MELD team. That said, I mean, how are you feeling about all this so far?
I mean, we've been quiet for quite a while because we've been focusing on building. We've been dealing with, all of the work that's involved with operating in the regulated world, as well as all sort of technical integration. So it's been quiet, and now we're finally at the point where we can demonstrate, we can show, we can share a lot of the work that's been sort of happening in the background. And so over the coming weeks and months, you're going to see more of this kind of pace when it comes to announcements and deployments of product and things like that.
That's very positive news. Before we jump into the topics here for today's video, I maybe just want to quickly lay down the groundwork here. So we're going to briefly touch on a Bit2Pay. I made a minor mistake here in my prior video. I want to clear that up here with my community. Following that, there's support for 19 brand new currencies which have been added to the MELD ecosystem. We've also got the ecosystem map that was just released not too long ago, which we'll be discussing. And then following that, we'll jump into the mobile application Yield Boost, your ongoing airdrop campaign, NFTs, tokenomics, and then last but not least, staking, with the first ever ISPO taking place on the MELD ecosystem with DEGA. That said, like I said, I made a mistake here, and I'm going to completely own this one. This has nothing to do with Ken. For the viewers, for full transparency, we actually shot an interview before the actual announcement came out. And when I was playing back the audio, I heard BitPay, not Bit2Pay. And so I basically posted that you guys had acquired BitPay, which obviously was inaccurate.
I wish.
So
That would be great. It would be fantastic.
well,
I'd hope that we'd acquired BitPay as well, but no, not the case.
yeah, no, I think it's in the cards, maybe not now, but in the future. But I did want to quickly go ahead and clear out the air with respect to that. Now, Ken, if you want to add anything, this would be the time to about Bit2Pay. I know, again, that the announcement has just came out. If not, we can jump into the very first topic.
No, I mean, we covered most of it yesterday, or we covered it in the last video. And if people want more details, we did a spaces yesterday where I went into a lot more details about the specifics of the type of license and why and how it fits into MELD, etc. So no, I think we can let Bit2Pay kind of go, and people can go back to your previous video and watch that to get more details.
Perfect. And I'll go ahead and leave the link to the X space that was held yesterday. I believe it was yourself, Pepe, and then we also had Victor joining in and contributing to the conversation.
Germin is the head of our banking. He was there as well.
Perfect. All right. Jumping into the first topic here, we've got support for, I believe, 19 brand new currencies on the MELD platform. Do you mind breaking down what this means for the broader ecosystem and users for MELD?
Yeah, so we support 19 now. We brought on 18 new ones. So we had euros to start with, and now we're bringing on. We have a new partner to provide this type of correspondence for the on-ramping and off-ramping of these different currencies. And so we now have the support for a total of 19 currencies. And this will continue to expand over the weeks and months. This isn't the only provider that we're working with to provide a kind of a broader section. We're still missing a bunch of what I would consider to be key currencies. We're missing British pounds, we're missing Swiss francs, Japanese yen, a couple Chinese yuan. So we still have some more that are going to be coming in, but this 19 is great because it covers a lot of typically uncovered regions that are very, very important, but are oftentimes overlooked, especially in the fintech or in the neobanking world. So it's like places like Vietnam and Mexico, Indonesia, Malaysia, Thailand. I think we have Kenya. I can't think of all of the rest that we have. We have a bunch of them. And so it provides that kind of, it's the basis for what we said we were going to set out to do, right? To be able to provide these types of services on a global basis, not just Western Europe and America and maybe Singapore and Japan, but covering a much larger part of the planet, and honestly covering a part of the planet or countries that have embraced crypto more as a meaningful currency, as a defense against inflation on their own currencies. And so we think that this is a very important extension to what we already have. It also includes the support of dollars, of course. And also, as part of this, we are including various different ways of being able to do on-ramping and off-ramping beyond just wire transfers, right? So this includes using cards for on-ramping and off-ramping, but it also includes many local payment methods in each of these different countries. Every country has its own set of kind of payment mechanics that they have to deal with, or that has grown up in their jurisdiction, whether it's Mexican pesos or Brazilian real or whatever it is. So the support of those local payment methods gives you much more friendly access to those citizens for them to be able to on-ramp and off-ramp in an easy manner.
And just to make sure that I completely understand here, Ken, this is for the neobank services where people are able to deposit their fiat in order to, interact with the MELD ecosystem.
Yeah, in order to be able to on-ramp and off-ramp and do things like that. Yeah.
Got it. Now, before we move along here, again, I'm showing the full list here of the currencies on screen. Do you mind breaking down, because you mentioned the debit card as well? I don't think that we've spoken about that in a while, so I'd love to hear how things are going on that perspective.
So the debit card, it won't come out at the same time as the launch of the fiat services, but it'll probably come out a couple months after that. It's in the works right now. And we have a couple of providers that we're working with to get that across the line. A large portion of the debit card infrastructure is done in the banking stack on the back end. So it's in process, but it's by no means is it like the number one priority. The number one priority is to get the fiat accounts out, to get it, in the hands of people where they can have non-custodial wallets connected to their fiat, be able to do on-ramping and off-ramping. And then we'll extend that out and make it so that you're able to have your debit cards. One of the things we're working on in regards to the debit card side is making sure that, typically with a debit card today, like a crypto-friendly debit card, you take your ETH or you take your USDT or USDC or whatever you have, and you transfer it to the debit card wallet address, a specific wallet address, and then it gets automatically put into the card, and then it's sitting in the card as dollars or euros or yen or whatever currency you have, and then you can spend it. This is not how we envision this happening. We want it to be set up so that you keep all of your assets on the crypto side, and only when you actually spend does the transfer happen and goes into the wallet and immediately gets converted to fiat and then is used. So we want to make it so that most, if not all of your money can be kept on chain, and then you can use it on demand. So this is one of the things that's kind of has been in the works for a while, and we're hoping that this settlement layer is what it's called, will be able to be available in the first iteration of the debit card. If it's not, we're not going to delay the debit card, right? The priority here is delivery. The priority here is not to have all of the bells and whistles and all of the features sort of from day one.
Thanks, Ken. And it's really good to hear that you're aiming to at least keep our crypto assets working on chain for us
Yeah.
until the time that we need it. Now, I have to ask one final question before we move into the next piece here, which is with respect to the additional currencies that we spoke about earlier. So one of those currencies listed there is the US dollar. I currently live in the United States, and that means a lot to me. Um, from what I understand, there may not necessarily be neobank opportunities for everybody at launch. So while you guys are supporting something like the US dollar, how does that play when it comes to areas or countries where you guys are able or not able to actually open up a neobank?
So we have a list, I think it's on the website or under docs, of countries we support and we don't support. There's 80 something countries that we currently support. It's, a huge portion of the world. There are some jurisdictions that we can't support because of the sort of banking partners that we work with don't allow it. Obviously the sanctioned countries and several other countries, but you can go and find out the details. And then, of course, the United States falls under that list. Pretty much everywhere else, most countries that you would think of, we do support, both in South America, Africa, the Middle East, Asia, Europe, non-EU Europe, I mean. So we cover a huge swath of the planet. And I would argue the majority of the users, but it's not everybody. So you can go to our website and you can find out in our doc sections, docs.meld.com, and you can get a list of the countries that are supported versus the countries that are not supported.
Thank you, Ken. Jumping into the second topic here for today's interview, you guys just had that X Space again. I've left the link to that down below for anybody who wants to catch up on that. One big piece that came out of that, or that was at least discussed, was the ecosystem map.
Yeah.
Do you mind breaking down, some of the partners and maybe some of the highlights? Obviously, we can't talk about everybody on the map, but I'd love to hear about your thoughts.
For me, at least, the key takeaway is that it covers a wide range of types of projects. That's what we're kind of really trying to shoot for. A lot of layer ones that focus on banking, they tend to get pigeonholed into this idea that, okay, the layer one is a banking layer, so therefore it's all about banking. Everything should be banking related. But if you think about it, banking is just a need to have for pretty much any type of business. And so we're here to enable other types of businesses not to try and get more things that are like MELD. And so you see that we have lots of dev tools for people to be able to build on. Some of them are auditors that now have either audited on the MELD blockchain, or they are familiar with how the MELD blockchain works, and they can do that. And also sort of technology providers like ThirdWeb. They support the MELD blockchain, both mainnet and testnet, making it very easy for game developers and app developers to integrate wallets and build core sort of functionality. Then we have the infrastructure players. Again, this is very builder focused for data providers like Covalent and oracles like Umbrella and Super Oracle. So we wanted to cover a broad range. Some of these things are currently in development, like UMSU and Mother. They'll come out probably sometime this year, early next year. The one that I'm really kind of super excited about, and we're going to talk about it a little bit later, is Defined. So I'm super happy that Defined decided to launch on the MELD chain. I think it's a critical part of the business. But yeah, so this kind of we wanted to hit a broad swath of different projects, and we'll be publishing this ecosystem map every month, so you'll see how the ecosystem grows.
Thanks, Ken. Maybe a two-part question here. Are there any other partners that you guys are currently onboarding that you can share? And then maybe what are you most excited about? I know you mentioned Defined, Mother, and I think one other platform, but like, what are you specifically excited about?
Um, I think the thing that I'm most excited about are projects that come to us that want to launch on the MELD blockchain. I don't care what it is. It can be anything. And so, like, I had someone reach out last week about a meme coin that he's been working on that he wants to launch on the MELD blockchain. Actually, several, but this is the first meeting that I had with somebody. And so, what I want to see is I want to see an ecosystem grow around it that has its own life. That's really kind of what you need in a space when you're building a layer one. You need to have that a community that kind of supports itself, that kind of grows and has a life of its own. And so when projects come to us that want to launch on the MELD blockchain that we never thought would be something that you would launch on the MELD blockchain, that's what makes me happy.
Yeah, seeing the use cases that maybe you didn't intend to see out there really come to fruition. And your community, I've been seeing a lot of Melder NFTs and a lot of people that are support through creating content. And so I'm excited to see exactly what they're able to do with those two NFT marketplaces, or at least those two NFT platforms when it comes to that. Okay, cool. I think we've discussed and touched on that quite a bit there. Next, let's talk about the mobile application. So this was released, I believe, on iOS. At least the beta was for Diamond Hand holders a few months back. I actually got my hands on it and I was able to release a full deep dive about the app. I'm sure that there's been a lot of updates that have been implemented since then. What's the current state of the iOS app? And then, of course, I've got to ask about Android as well.
Yeah. So on the iOS side, I think on Monday or Tuesday, we will be onboarding customer number one. So all of the core functionality is there. We're testing it now. The last piece to be having its kind of final testing is the subscription mechanics for people to be able to subscribe to be able to sort of sign up for subscriptions, a monthly and annual subscriptions. So that's kind of the last piece that has to be kind of have the last parts of it integrated, and then test it as a whole. But we're onboarding our first private retail customer next week, customer number one. And the following week, we'll be onboarding our first business. So business number one. So we're in good shape in that sense. How long it's going to take for us to iron out any bugs that we find along the way, I can't tell you. But what I can say is that, we're just kind of, everybody in MELD is just really, really wants to get this product into the market and start kind of pushing the customer adoption as opposed to the testing or the development.
Now, you just mentioned a monthly subscription or monthly service. Could you maybe highlight why and then what you get for that?
Yeah. So when we launch, we'll launch with a special deal. So what that means is you'll be able to sign up. There's two different types of accounts. You have a free account and you have a paid subscription account. So the free account is obviously free. The paid subscription account will be €5 a month. This is an introductory deal. This is not what people will have after a couple of months when we sort of roll out a new version of it. The subscription, when we roll out the full version, will be closer to €15 a month. But for this early adopter stuff, we're going to open it up at €5 a month. And the difference between the two is when you're on-ramping and off-ramping between fiat and crypto, with the free version, you pay 1% fee for doing your on-ramping. For the paid version, you're going to pay 0.01% for on-ramping and off-ramping. So that's the primary difference between the two now. If you get the subscription now and you pay for an annual subscription, then you will be paying that €5, the equivalent of €5 a month for the entire year, even when the subscription goes up to 15. If you're in the free account and the subscription, and we go to the next version, the subscription gets to the higher subscription tier, and you upgrade, then you'll have to pay the higher fee. The paid subscriptions will include cards. The free subscriptions will not.
That's pretty important, that last piece there. So I'd heard about the discounts on the on-ramp fees, but I didn't realize that the card comes with the subscription only.
Yeah.
Now, you've mentioned the fees for on-ramping. Are there plans for fees for off-ramping as well?
It's the same fee for on-ramping and
Okay,
off-ramping. Yeah, no
got it.
difference in fees.
Got it. So you've got that 1% if you're coming in from the free side. And then I believe you mentioned it's 0.01%, which is almost nothing at that point
Yeah,
if you end
correct.
up paying for the subscription. Cool.
Right.
Okay. Thanks, Ken. Unless there's anything else that you want to add with respect to the mobile application, I think we'll just keep on chugging along here.
Yeah, no,
Um,
that's
the next piece is yield boost. So you actually talked a little bit about yield boost not too long ago. You've also done some of the, I believe they're called learn with me. I don't. You have to excuse me, Ken. It's early here, but you basically did some whiteboard style videos. I thought that
yeah.
they were really great. I'd love to actually see more. So maybe you could talk about what your plans are for that in the future. But one of them was breaking down the yield boost mechanic. Again, we talked a little bit about it, during our last interview, where you're able to basically lock up assets on other chains, still earn staking while still putting those migrated assets to work on the MELD protocol. Maybe like what's the grand vision with something like yield boost, and then how do you get people to, number one, understand it? Obviously those whiteboard videos are great explainers, but then number two, get comfortable enough to actually take advantage of something like that.
So yeah, I mean, the whole idea behind yield boost goes back to the idea of capital efficiency. Um, when we wrote our white paper, the idea was to bridge an asset and then put it into the lending and borrowing protocol. Once it got into the pool, then, if the part of the pool wasn't being used, then the asset would be taken out, would be bridged back into the original chain and staked. If somebody wanted to borrow it or wanted to withdraw it, then we would have to unwind those transactions. And about 6 months ago, I was working with Pepe and we were looking at this, at sort of how to sort of architect this. And it kind of hit us. Um, what we had designed was fabulously expensive and insanely complex. And we could do the whole process much more efficiently, much safer, much less risk by simply bringing Akamon back from the dead, pulling it back up, finishing the last pieces of it, then using some of the tech for bridging over to Ethereum and Avalanche. And then part of that bridging process, we would stake it before it ever got onto the MELD blockchain. So faster, cheaper, more secure, less moving parts. And we were able to build a lot less technology on the back end in regards to the lending and borrowing protocol. So when we realized that, then we saw that we were going to be able to do a lot more than you could do so much more with it, because it basically meant that the vision is any asset coming over onto the MELD chain automatically yields. So you can think of it as the MELD version of a risk-free rate. That is the vision. That's not the reality. The reality is it'll start with Cardano, ETH, AVAX, USDT, and USDC, and then we'll expand from there. So these assets, when they're brought across, you're able to generate a yield. And the way you capture that yield is by staking it into the lending and borrowing protocol. When you put your assets into the lending and borrowing protocol, which is equivalent to putting it into a savings account in the sort of traditional banking world, you supply it, and then you're able to capture that yield. So if you bridge over Cardano or ADA, then when it gets locked on the ADA side, it immediately gets staked into a bunch of stake pools. And then that yield, which is 2 point something, 3%, is brought over. You take your ADA and you supply it, and then you'll automatically earn that 2 point something or 3%. If people decide to borrow the ADA that you've supplied, then you'll get that 3% plus that borrow rate. So that's why it's a boost. So you still get paid for being a part of the lending and borrowing protocol, but the starting point that you're working from is much higher.
One thing I want to just maybe mention here, that way we can just clarify. There's little to no risk with this approach because, again, you're not borrowing against what you've put up. So you're supplying the Cardano or the other assets that you've mentioned. You're earning the staking rewards, and you're also earning the supply yield by supplying the assets on the actual MELD blockchain. So again, for the viewers, I know that a lot of this can be confusing at times, but I
Yeah.
just do want to mention that this does not involve borrowing against your own assets.
No, no.
Therefore, you're not in the position to be liquidated or anything like that. So
Yeah.
just wanted to highlight that there. Next, we've got the Airdrop campaign. I believe this started almost about a year ago, right? We heard about the MELD campaign,
Yeah.
and then there was also a Zealy campaign. I'm not sure how much you're able to share, but I know, from working with you and being very close to the team, that I believe there's a new internal dashboard when it comes to this management for the Airdrop campaign. Could we get an update on, the status of that?
So yeah, so as soon as these products go live, then we'll be announcing more activities in regards to the airdrop on the usage side. And then we have some tools, both internal and are designed for external for public consumption, with regards to the airdrop that we will be promoting. Once we've announced it, then people will be able to get engaged again. And then the airdrop will run for a period of time, not particularly very long, but it will run for a period of time, when lending and borrowing is live, when the banking is live. And then you'll see the airdrop happen relatively soon after those things. But we wanted to make sure that the airdrop involved people actually bridging to MELD, actually using the lending and borrowing protocol. Of course, if you've done bridging in testnet, if you've done testing of the lending and borrowing protocol, all of this is going to go towards your airdrop. So especially the working with testnet. So we appreciate everybody who's actually been doing these testing and helping out. And so we want to make sure that they're rewarded, and they're rewarded very well.
As we get ready to close this particular segment out, and it's obviously a short one, I don't think there's too much to harp on here. Is it too late for anybody who wants to join in to go ahead and do so?
No, honestly, it's been so long, I don't remember what the process is. You'll have to go to either Telegram or Discord, or you can go to the airdrop page on the website, and just follow whatever the instructions are. We're streamlining this and going to sort of upgrade it pretty significantly in the next version. So yeah, you can go there now and you can find out how to get signed up, and then take it from there.
Perfect. And for anybody who wants to find out more about that, that is available. Let's see here at meld.com/meld airdrop. Again, links will be left down below. Thanks again, Ken, for so much of your time here. The next piece I want to talk about are NFTs. So
Yeah.
we've got the MELD bank managers, and I know I mentioned this a while back, but there are like 4 or 5 iterations. I still think the very first ever iteration were by far the
Right.
best artwork. So now that I've got that out the way, we've
I'll tell you
seen
what.
the.
When we get an NFT marketplace on the MELD blockchain, I'll mint one for you and I'll send it to you.
I
You'll
would
be
love that.
the only person with like the alpha alpha NFT.
Yeah, no, I sometimes I go back and I watch some of my old content, and some of my first videos were all melt based videos,
Yeah,
and I'm just like, wow, it's crazy how far things have come
yeah,
over the span of about I would say about 2 years now.
yeah.
Okay, so with the NFTs, we've obviously got the bank managers, we've got the diamond hands. Both of those are minted on Cardano. I believe there's going to be some sort of bridging mechanism into the MELD ecosystem. There's also been, I believe, 1 or 2 NFTs that have been minted on the actual MELD blockchain, right? So one of them was an actual NFT to test out the bridging. And then I believe the second was the MELD manifesto. Can you maybe break down, are there any plans for incorporating those NFTs into the bigger MELD picture? And then what about the actual NFTs that are in Cardano and just sort of the bridging process over into the MELD ecosystem?
So bridging is live. I think that we're still doing some final testing on it. I know we tested it on Friday. Oh no, sorry, we tested on Monday of this week. So we should be able to provide an announcement as to when those things can be bridged pretty quickly, probably something like next week or the following week. We're still running into some small little details. For example, we ran into last week or this week an issue where it was impossible to send an NFT if you had more than 150 NFTs in your wallet. So it's these kinds of edge cases that we're trying to sort of squash the bugs and get things working so that they're doing well. When you bridge the bank manager from Cardano onto the MELD blockchain, it will no longer be the bank manager. It will be the banker. So on Cardano, it's called the MELD Bank Manager. On the MELD blockchain, it's called the MELD Banker. The reason for that is we have some plans towards the end of the year and the beginning of next year to do collaborations with artists to reimagine what the bankers look like. So when we're working with an artist, then it will be the artist's name times the banker. And so that's why we needed to change the name, because we have a kind of a bigger vision for what these bank managers can do and how they can, what kind of role they can play in the ecosystem. We don't have any concrete kind of ideas in regards to benefits, but there will definitely be other types of benefits. And so we wanted to make it a bit more flexible. And like you said, you know, you like the original ones. We want to bring in some more variety and allow artists to kind of reimagine the MELD banker and have it kind of be in their vision. And then people can choose which kind of styles they like. And it just varies things up and kind of adds a bit more life to it. So again, this is not a priority. We're not working on this right now. All we're working on is the bridging mechanic. But that's kind of the vision over the long term, is to be able to have more variety and more kind of dynamic ecosystem with regards to the bankers.
Thank you. Now I know that there was some announcements made a while back about potential yield boost, which I think it was like 0.01% or 0.1%, and then like a minor loan rate reduction for those bankers. Does that still apply? And then of course the same, I think, with the with the diamond hands, where I believe there was early access, but then I believe no fees, if I'm not
Yeah,
mistaken.
correct. No fees.
Okay. So it sounds
No
like
subscription
the
fees. Yeah.
announced utility remains, but there could be some new use cases that open up.
Yeah. So we've had to make adjustments to the way in which the bank managers interface with the lending and borrowing protocol. Um, we saw technically it was incredibly difficult to add a direct boost and discount into the system. And so what we did is we still have the boost and we still have the discount. Um, or it's a bit hard to explain, but we still have a boost and we still have a discount, but it's more connected to the yield boost, which we have more control over. The reason for this is that the way that pools work, everybody is treated equally in a pool. And when you start kind of dividing up, this person gets treated in a different way than this person and this person, then you're running into a lot of edge cases and a lot of really serious kind of reworkings of how pools work, which introduce new risks. And so we decided instead provide either this similar or better boost and discount, but do it through the yield boost as opposed to doing it directly into the pool itself, which, you know, could compromise things.
Interesting. So I'm going to jump back over probably into the docs page just to learn and familiarize myself a little bit with what you guys at least have posted so far. But it sounds like there are some tweaks.
Yeah,
But at the end
and
of the day,
we're gonna do a spaces that's specifically about only that, with diagrams and kind of we'll make it very clear to the community exactly what's happening and how it's different than what we had originally imagined.
got it. Yeah, no, I think the clarity is definitely going to be important there. Again, there's just a lot of different things going on. Now, as we move into the second to last piece here, I want to jump into the MELD tokenomics. Um, Again, you guys started off here in Cardano. You guys are now building the L1 on Avalanche. A lot of people were concerned early on that the supply or the total supply of the MELD token would increase. You guys basically said, hey, that's not going to be the case. We're going to be using a multi-sig in order to make sure that we never pass over that 4 billion minted of the tokens. There's also the upgrade of the MELD token in the Cardano ecosystem, where there was a V1 and a V2, which obviously fragmented a little bit of liquidity. If I'm not mistaken, at the end of this year, if people have not bridged, they're basically going to be losing out on MELD, right?
Correct.
So could you give us an update on that? Maybe anything in terms of the multi-sig progress? And then I've got one follow-up after that.
So on the multi-sig and all that stuff, that's live. That's been live since December of last year. That's kind of working. In regards to the old token, if you haven't converted your token by December 31st, then yes, you will lose all of your tokens. We've given a year and like 8 months for people to do that, and we think that that's a fair amount of time for them to have to do the swap. With regards to the tokenomics and the 4 billion tokens, the way that it works is, what we're trying to avoid by being able to have tokens on multiple blockchains is a contract to be able to arbitrarily mint new tokens and go above that 4 billion number, right? So the way that we've solved that is we have pools of tokens on all of the chains, and then we use a multi-sig to be able to burn and mint new tokens in each of these different chains. So it's more of a manual management between the different chains to make sure that the assets stay at 4 billion, and to make sure that there's enough assets on each chain when a user wants to bridge. So when a user bridges, no token is minted. There is no mint and burn mechanic. It's just locked on one chain and released from a liquidity pool on the other chain. So this is a much safer method of bridging. So every week, we have to go in and look and see on the different chains, where do we need to rebalance? Is there more MELD on Cardano than on MELD? So then do we need to kind of burn on Cardano and mint on MELD, or is it vice versa? So we have to manage this. This is the method that USDC uses in order to minimize the amount of third-party risk or smart contract risk in regards to the asset.
Thanks, Ken, and I apologize there for the background noise. It's
No
still
problem.
early morning, and so people are fixing some coffee. Yeah, that's really interesting. I think my only maybe bit of feedback on that is, obviously, with anything that requires like a little bit like manual overhead, we then run the risk of like human error, right?
Yes.
So are there any fail safes in place? If I'm not mistaken, I remember a while back there was mention of like insurance. Is that still the case? Again, I would love to hear, what are your thoughts about like mitigating any potential issues when it comes to the manual management of the tokens?
Yeah, so that's why we use the multi-sig. So you have to have, I think, 3 of 5 to be able to mint and burn. So you have to have multiple people's eyes on the product to make sure that you're minimizing the possibility for human error. We are talking to one organization about insurance, but we probably are not going to implement something like that until maybe several months from now, just because any of these kinds of things are distractions from actually getting the product out.
Noted. And you did mention again the Cardano native token migration, which I want to definitely make sure to go ahead and highlight here as a part of this video. So I'm going to quickly just share this here again. This is available on the official MELD's doc page. Please, 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 folks, make sure to go ahead and migrate those tokens, as Ken mentioned, after December 31st here. Those will no longer be valid. And I know a lot of that is from all of it actually is from the Cardano community, right? There's no other migration that has to happen in any other ecosystem. So for my viewers who are mainly Cardano, please make sure to take the time to go ahead and migrate your tokens.
And this is not a migration from Cardano to MELD. This is a migration from a old Cardano token to a new Cardano token.
That is a really good point that you raised there. And I've actually got a fully dedicated video. It's about 20 minutes long, walking through the entire token migration or the token upgrade process. So, again, I'll leave the link to that down below. All right, Ken. I believe we've made it to the last topic. I mean, I thank you again for letting me sort of just grill you a little bit, right? Bringing you on here and just asking you
Sure.
question after question after question. The last one is surrounding the MELD nodes and staking. As it stands right now, we've got 27 nodes online. We're in epoch number 36, which is actually very similar to epochs in Cardano, right? Which also last 5
Yeah.
days. And as you guys can see there, we've got a TVL amount of $8 million through or locked up through all of those nodes. Um, how's the progress on here? I know for a really long time, and maybe even still now, people are like itching to get in on pools. I know when these were announced back in like December, they filled up immediately. Are there plans to launch more pools? And then I want to talk a little bit more about DEGA in just a minute.
So yeah, so the this is a formal mechanic on the size and the health of the blockchain, right? The reason why you stake is you're securing the chain. So as the chain grows, as transactions grow, as users grow, so will the nodes. The nodes are not, this isn't kind of just free money, right? The nodes are there to do something. They have a function. And so as we launch these different products, as we get more users in the space, as more projects launch on the chain, as we have more kind of transactions, then it will start taxing the network. And then as it starts taxing the network in regards to resources, we then need to add more nodes. So I'm hoping to get to maybe 50 or 60 nodes by the end of the year, if possible. You never know what the adoption is going to look like. It could be 101 for all we know. Um, but we'll see growth as we see growth in the actual, number of users and what people are doing on chain.
Noted. Um, last topic. We've got DEGA. So the
Yeah.
DEGA team just had their token generation event. I'm actually going to be meeting with Carlos here in about an hour. So as soon as I get off with you, I'm going to ask him about how his experience on Meld
Say
has
hi
been.
for me.
We'll definitely do. We'll definitely do. This is one of the well, this is the first ever
It's the first. Yeah,
ISPO on
absolutely.
Meld. So like, what have you guys learned, and maybe what are some things that you guys are like able to bring back to Meld and say, hey, okay, this went extremely well, and this is maybe something that we can kind of tweak to maybe get more engagement or provide more value to the actual ISPO project.
So yeah, so we're talking to a bunch of projects now that are interested in doing an ISPO. Now that we've seen DEGA sort of go through this process, we've ironed out some of the kinks. Carlos is somebody that I've known in the space for since I've started. So we've had a good relationship. And so now it's a matter of basically taking what we've done. We haven't had any issues or any kind of stumbles or anything like that. It's just been, polishing things like the tool for them to be able to monitor internally the owner of the node, kind of things like that. And so I think that we'll see, throughout the rest of this year and into 2025, we'll see a lot more ISPOs coming up on the MELD chain. And we're going to continuously work with different organizations, both organizations that work with like incubators that have lots of projects, but also individual projects.
Noted, and thank you. I look forward to being able to provide more value and more information about the TGE, upcoming ISPOs, and distributions like that with respect to MELD moving forward. Ken, again, we've been going for quite a bit here, just at the 45-minute mark. I want to maybe ask you for final or closing thoughts. You can highlight anything that you want to talk about.
Just thanks for all the patience. And, we've been working very hard for a very long time now. We're finally seeing the fruits of the work that we've done. And now the product is starting to roll out. Like I said, some of these things are already live. And the coming weeks are going to be very exciting. And we're going to finally see a lot of customers get their hands on MELD products and be able to use them.
Thank you, Ken, Chief Astronaut here of MELD, joining me here for a pretty big update. This has been an interesting one. I've been refreshed and I've learned a lot here along the way. For anybody who's watching who wants to find out more about MELD, of course, again, check out the links down below. Check out my playlist. I think it's over 50 videos long now. Again, it's crazy how quickly
Nice.
time flies. But it's been enjoyable. It's been enjoyable. So, Ken, again, I want to thank you for your time. Look forward to bringing you back on here as we get more developments, and especially as we get closer to the official launch of the lending and borrowing app on mainnet. That will do it here for today's video. For you, the viewers watching at home, if you enjoyed any portion of today's video or you just learned anything along the way, I would appreciate you if you could smash that thumbs up. It's one of the easiest ways here to support me as a content creator. If it's your first time stopping by the channel and you want more content just like this, breaking down some of the biggest DeFi builders here, consider subscribing to Dapp Central. And last but not least, if you have any questions for myself or Ken about any of the topics that we've discussed as a part of today's interview, then make sure to leave a comment down below. That said, and as always, we'll see you all in the next video. Cheers, everybody.